The morning light was soft when Armin walked through the glass doors of his own grocery chain, but that day, he wasn't there as the CEO. He had left behind his expensive suit, polished shoes, and the quiet authority that usually followed him. Instead, he wore a plain polo shirt, a pair of simple slacks, and a name tag with Sam, trainee written on it. No one in the store knew who he really was, and that was exactly how he wanted it. For years, Armin had run his company from the top floor of a tall building in the city. Reports came to his desk every day: sales numbers, productivity charts, staff complaints. Yet, something always felt missing. Numbers could never tell him what it was like to stand behind a register for 8 hours, to deal with impatient customers, or to work through a storm when deliveries were late. So he made a choice, to go undercover and see for himself. The store was already alive with movement. Shopping carts clattered against each other, the smell of baked bread floated from the bakery corner, and a group of customers hurried through the produce section picking out fresh apples and lettuce. Armin's first task was simple: shadow the cashiers. That was where he met Lena. Lena looked no older than her mid-20s. She wore the same red apron as the other workers, her hair tied neatly back, and a polite smile on her face. There was nothing flashy about her, yet something about the calmness in her voice stood out. "Good morning, sir," she said to the first customer of the day, scanning items with quick hands, bagging them neatly, and thanking each person as though they were the most important customer she would meet all day. Armin joined her line under the excuse of training. He watched closely as she handled every small challenge with surprising grace. When a barcode didn't scan, she stayed calm, keyed it in, and apologized sincerely. When a toddler started crying loudly because he wanted candy, Lena distracted him with a sticker from the counter until his mother finished paying. Even when a customer grew rude about the price of milk, she didn't argue. She simply explained the sale policy gently and kept her voice steady. Armin thought to himself, she is exactly the kind of person our customers remember, not the ads we run or the discounts we give. Hours passed quickly as the store grew busier. Armin helped bag groceries next to her and noticed how she barely stopped moving. She didn't gossip with co-workers, didn't waste time. Every small action she did seemed to come from a place of quiet responsibility. But beneath her polite smile, Armin sensed something heavier. He had led teams long enough to know when someone was carrying a private struggle. When the lunch bell rang, most of the employees disappeared into the staff room. Armin expected Lena to follow, but instead, she stayed behind the counter for a moment, quietly pulling out her phone. She sent a short message and then slipped it back into her apron pocket before walking toward the back, carrying only a bottle of water. Curious, Armin followed slowly. The break room was noisy, filled with laughter, wrappers, and the clink of soda cans. But Lena wasn't there. She sat instead on a bench near the lockers, sipping her water and scrolling through her phone, her face softening at the screen. Armin sat at a distance, pretending to check his phone. He glanced and noticed a picture, a tiny baby with round cheeks and bright eyes. Lena smiled faintly, then typed another quick message. She didn't open a lunchbox or unwrap any food. A fellow cashier, Maria, walked by with half a sandwich. "Hey, Lena, want some?" "I packed too much." Lena shook her head with a smile. "Thanks, maybe later." Armin couldn't help but notice. She was skipping her meal. She returned to her register as though nothing was wrong, still smiling at the next customer. But her steps were slower, and she held onto the counter a little more firmly, as though keeping herself steady. Later, while helping her bag groceries, Armin spotted a folded note slip out of her apron pocket. She quickly tucked it back in, but not before he caught a glimpse. The note wasn't a love letter or a shopping list. It was a budget sheet. One line read formula with a circle around it. Another read lunch equals skip. In that moment, Armin felt a small ache in his chest. This young mother was sacrificing her own food to make sure her baby had enough formula at home. She worked full hours on her feet, dealt with stress and complaints, and yet she still put her child above herself every single day. As the afternoon rush began again, Armin studied Lena differently. He noticed how she kept standing tall even when her stomach must have been empty. He saw her wave goodbye to customers as if nothing was missing in her life. He realized she wasn't just an employee, she was a mother fighting quietly for her child's tomorrow. And as the CEO, standing undercover with a trainee tag, Armin knew that this simple act of sacrifice would change more than just his perspective. It would shape the future of his entire company. The lunch break passed quickly, and as the noise of wrappers and chatter from the staff room faded, Lena returned to her register with nothing more than her bottle of water. Armin noticed she still carried the same polite smile, greeting each customer as if nothing were unusual. But in his mind, that small detail, the skipped lunch, the folded budget note, kept echoing. He stood next to her register, quietly helping to bag groceries. A line of customers stretched forward, each with their own needs. One customer asked where the sugar was, another complained about the price of cereal, and still another grew irritated because a coupon wouldn't scan. Through it all, Lena remained steady. She apologized kindly, double-checked barcodes, and explained store policies with patience. Her voice never rose, and she never let frustration show. Armin couldn't help but admire her calmness, yet he also saw the faint shadows under her eyes, the way she sometimes held the counter as if to steady herself. Hunger was not loud like anger, but it left small signs if one paid attention. Later in the afternoon, as the register lights blinked and more customers crowded in, Lena's co-worker Maria leaned close and whispered, "Are you okay? You look pale." Lena smiled and nodded. "I'm fine. Just a little tired." Maria looked worried, but the line was moving, so she hurried back to her own register. Armin watched carefully. He remembered the line on Lena's budget note, "Lunch equals skip." He realized this was not a one-time thing. This was her routine. She was making this choice every day so her baby could have formula at night. That kind of sacrifice wasn't easy. It wasn't visible in numbers on a company report. It was the kind of truth only found when you stood in the shoes of an employee. When the evening rush came, a problem appeared. A customer grew upset because the scanner misread a discount. He complained loudly, saying the staff never did their job right. Lena tried to explain, but the man only grew louder. Armin stepped in quietly. He scanned the item again, showed the correct price, and handed the customer a printed coupon for next time. The man calmed down and left. Afterward, Lena whispered, "Thanks." She sounded tired but grateful. Armin wanted to ask her about her life, her baby, her struggles, but he knew he had to be careful. For now, he just offered her a bottle of juice from the cooler. She smiled politely and said, "No, thank you. I'll be okay." She tucked the juice aside for later, probably not planning to drink it herself. During the short pause between customers, Armin's eyes drifted again to her apron pocket, where the folded note rested. It was not just a list. It was a map of survival. Formula, diapers, rent. And then the little sacrifices, her skipped meals just to make it all fit. He thought back to his own office, the polished conference tables, the endless discussions about sales targets. Those meetings never once mentioned what he was witnessing now. Nobody in a suit had told him, "Our cashiers are skipping meals to feed their children." The day moved forward with more small challenges. A delivery arrived late, so the stockers rushed to unload. A card machine froze, and Lena handled it calmly with a manual receipt pad. She kept customers smiling, even when things didn't go smoothly. By closing time, Armin was quiet. He had seen enough to know that Lena was not just an employee, she was a fighter. Her story wasn't in the reports he read at headquarters. It was here, hidden in plain sight. That night, As he left the store, Armin thought about his own children, now grown and successful. He remembered the days when they were small, the nights when he and his wife worried about bills. But Lena's struggle was sharper. She was doing it mostly alone, with less support, yet with remarkable strength. He promised himself that what he saw today would not be forgotten. This was not just about one cashier. This was about every unseen worker who gave more than they received. Armin knew change had to begin, and it had to begin soon. The next morning, the store was busy again. Customers filled the aisles with carts, the smell of fresh bread floated from the bakery, and the sound of beeping scanners echoed through the checkout lanes. Armin returned in his plain clothes and trainee badge, ready to keep observing. He had seen Lena skip her lunch the day before. Today, he wanted to understand more about the hidden struggles she faced at work. From the start of her shift, Lena moved quickly, scanning items, answering questions, and helping customers pack their bags. She smiled even when she looked tired. Her co-workers liked her, but Armin noticed something troubling. Her manager did not. Around mid-morning, the assistant manager walked up to Lena with a clipboard. "Lena, you were 2 minutes late yesterday," he said in a flat voice. "You know we can't allow that." Lena lowered her eyes and nodded. "I'm sorry. The bus was delayed." Instead of understanding, the manager sighed loudly, as if she had made a big mistake. "Next time, plan better," he said before walking away. Armin stood quietly, but inside he felt a mix of surprise and disappointment. He had been there yesterday. He knew Lena had stayed late helping customers. Yet, instead of being thanked, she was scolded. As the day went on, another challenge appeared. A customer in line grew impatient. "Why is this line moving so slow?" the man grumbled. "I don't have all day." Lena apologized politely and tried to work faster, but she was handling both scanning and bagging because the store was short-staffed. Armin jumped in, bagging groceries beside her with a calm smile. The line moved quicker, and the customer left without another word. "Thank you," Lena whispered to Armin. "It gets overwhelming sometimes." Armin only nodded, but his mind was turning. If one hard-working mother feels this much pressure, how many more of my employees are silently struggling? Later, during the short break, Armin walked toward the back area where employees usually rested. It wasn't really a proper break room, just a narrow corridor with a few chairs. There was no quiet place for a nursing mother, no comfortable space to relax. The vending machine hummed loudly, and the air smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals. He thought about Lena, who had a baby at home. How could she possibly balance motherhood with this kind of workplace? There wasn't even a space for her to sit in peace, let alone pump milk or rest properly. Back at the registers, Armin offered her a sandwich he had quietly bought from the store's deli counter. "Here, you should eat something," he said softly. But Lena shook her head with a gentle smile. "No, thank you. I'll be fine. I'm saving for tonight." Armin didn't push her, but the words stayed with him. She wasn't skipping meals because she wasn't hungry. She was skipping because her baby's needs came first. As the afternoon went on, Armin noticed more signs of her sacrifice. She became a little pale, moving slightly slower. Yet whenever a customer came to her register, she stood tall, greeted them with the same warmth, and carried on as if she had all the energy in the world. By evening, Armin had gathered quiet details from other workers too. He asked simple questions while pretending to be a trainee. How often did schedules get mixed up? Did anyone have trouble getting breaks? What happened when someone got sick? The answers painted a clear picture. Employees often swapped shifts by texting each other because the system was rigid. Breaks were sometimes cut short when the store got busy. And if one worker couldn't show up, others had to work harder without support. Armin realized this wasn't just about Lena. It was about an entire team carrying invisible burdens, while management focused only on rules and numbers. That evening, as he left the store again, Armin thought about the budget note he had seen in Lena's pocket. The line that read lunch equals skip was not only her truth, but a reflection of how many low-wage workers lived. And yet, she showed patience, kindness, and strength every single day. He knew he could not remain silent much longer. Something inside him was building a need to take action. But before revealing who he was, he wanted to see how far Lena's quiet strength could carry her through the days ahead. The sky outside turned dark as heavy clouds gathered, and soon the store lights flickered slightly from a sudden storm. Rain slapped against the glass doors, and thunder rolled far in the distance. Inside, customers hurried to finish their shopping, worried about getting home before the storm worsened. The checkout lines grew longer, and the tension in the air was sharp. Lena stood at her register, her hair slightly damp from a leak near the entrance where the wind pushed in drops of rain. The scanner beeped, bags rustled, and the sound of impatient sighs spread across the line. Then suddenly, the power blinked. For a moment, all the screens went dark. Gasps filled the store. A few customers muttered complaints. Without the register system, nothing could be scanned. But instead of panicking, Lena quickly picked up a pad of manual receipt sheets. She smiled calmly at the first customer and said, "Don't worry, we'll take care of you." She began writing down prices, calculating with a small handheld calculator, and keeping the line moving. Armin, still undercover, helped bag groceries while glancing at Lena with quiet admiration. Here she was, hungry and tired, yet she was the one holding the store together in a storm. He realized this was her nature: steady, patient, resourceful. Within a few minutes, the lights flickered back, and the registers returned to life. Customers clapped softly, some even praising Lena for not letting the line collapse into chaos. She just smiled and said, "It's part of the job." After the rush, the store manager gathered the staff for a quick meeting near the registers. He thanked them for staying calm. Armin stood among them, his heart pounding a little. He knew the moment had come. He looked around at the faces: young cashiers, tired stockers, assistants who had worked all day on their feet. And then at Lena, who stood quietly, adjusting her apron, probably thinking about her baby at home. Armin slowly reached for his name tag and removed it. "Before you go," he said, his voice clear but calm, "I want to tell you something. My name isn't Sam. I'm not a trainee." The staff blinked in surprise. Murmurs spread across the group. Armin continued, "My name is Armin Khan. I'm the CEO of this company." The room froze. Lena's eyes widened, her face flushing with shock. A few employees exchanged stunned looks. Some even stepped back, as if they couldn't believe the man who had been bagging groceries beside them was actually the head of the entire chain. "I came here undercover," Armin explained, "to see the truth of what happens in our stores, not from reports or charts, but from your side. And I want to tell you I've learned more in these 2 days than in months of sitting in a boardroom." He looked directly at Lena. She lowered her eyes, unsure if she was in trouble. "I saw dedication," Armin said. "I saw kindness. I saw sacrifice. And it made me realize that we, as leaders, have not done enough for the people who carry this company forward every single day." He paused, then announced clear steps. "Starting immediately, I am approving these changes. Every store will have a proper private room for nursing mothers and for employees to rest during breaks. Breaks will be protected. No one will be asked to cut them short, no matter how busy the store is. We will launch a new scheduling app that gives flexibility and fairness, so workers can swap shifts easily without stress. A hardship support program will be created for employees with young children, offering meal vouchers and help with baby essentials like formula and diapers. And finally, supervisors will receive training not only in management, but in empathy, because respect and understanding must come first." The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then slowly, Some of the staff began to clap. Maria wiped her eyes. Even the usually strict assistant manager looked humbled. Lena stood still, her hands slightly trembling. She didn't speak, but her eyes glistened with quiet emotion. Armin walked toward her and said softly, "You reminded me of what true strength looks like." "Thank you." He then turned back to the group. "This is not charity. This is justice. You give so much every day, and it's time the company gives back." For the first time, the employees felt they were truly being seen not as numbers or workers on a schedule, but as people with lives, families, and dreams. And as the storm outside began to clear, inside the store, something brighter was beginning. The storm outside had cleared by the next morning, but inside the store, something new was in the air. The employees came to work with a different energy. Word had spread quickly that the man who had been bagging groceries and scanning items beside them was actually the CEO. More surprising was not his title, but what he had promised. For years, workers had accepted certain hardships as just part of the job. Breaks were often cut short, schedules were rigid, and mothers like Lena carried quiet struggles no one noticed. But now, hope had arrived. This time, it wasn't just another policy written in a handbook. It was a change they had seen begin right in front of their eyes. Lena walked into the store holding her head a little higher. The night before, she had held her baby in her arms and whispered, "Things will be better soon." She wasn't sure how everything would unfold, but she believed the words of the man who had looked her in the eyes and said, "You reminded me what true strength looks like." Within a week, small changes began. The old break area was cleaned and painted. A small room was prepared with a comfortable chair, a fridge, and a quiet door that locked from the inside. A wellness room for nursing mothers and employees who needed a private space. For Lena, this meant she no longer had to sit in noisy hallways when she needed rest. For others, it meant dignity and comfort they had never known at work before. The scheduling app was introduced next. Employees could now swap shifts with ease, without fear of penalty. For parents like Lena, this was life-changing. When her babysitter fell sick one morning, she was able to swap her shift with Maria in minutes instead of begging the manager. This simple flexibility gave her peace of mind. The hardship program was also announced. Workers with young children received vouchers for groceries and baby essentials. The first time Lena held a voucher for formula, her hands shook slightly. For months, she had been balancing her budget by skipping meals. Now, she could feed her child and herself without guilt. Meanwhile, Armin stayed closely involved. He returned often, no longer undercover, but as himself. He spoke to employees one by one, asking what else could be improved. His presence alone made people feel valued. Customers began noticing too. The lines moved smoother, the staff smiled more, and the store felt lighter. The once strict assistant manager, after receiving empathy training, started showing kindness rather than scolding. He apologized to Lena for his earlier harsh words, a moment she never expected. For Lena, life slowly changed. She began eating her lunches again, encouraged by co-workers and supported by the new program. Her cheeks grew less pale, her steps more energetic. Customers noticed her warm smile even more. One elderly woman told her, "You brighten this store." A month later, during a staff meeting, the manager announced a promotion. "Lena will now serve as our customer care lead," he said. Applause filled the room. The role was not only recognition of her skills but also her steady patience and leadership. Lena accepted with humility. "I only did what I thought was right," she said softly. But inside, her heart swelled with pride. Armin, watching from the side, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had set out to see what life was like on the ground, but he had discovered much more. He had discovered the courage of a young mother, the quiet sacrifices that never reached the reports on his desk, and the strength hidden behind simple acts of patience. He knew the changes he made were only the beginning. This company must never forget its people, he told his executive team. Profit is important, but dignity is priceless. We must build policies that honor both. Months later, Lena stood once again at her register, but now with new confidence. She took her lunch break without skipping, knowing her child at home was cared for. She mentored new employees, teaching them not just how to scan items, but how to treat each customer with respect. She reminded them that kindness matters more than speed. And every time Armin visited the store, she greeted him with the same warm smile she once used for strangers. Only now, it was different. It was the smile of someone who had been seen, respected, and given the chance to rise. The story of Lena became an inspiration within the company. Other stores began noticing small acts of sacrifice in their own teams. Leaders paid closer attention. And slowly, the culture shifted from one that overlooked quiet struggles to one that valued humanity. In the end, it wasn't just Lena's life that changed. It was the life of everyone who worked beside her. The gentle lesson lingered: sometimes, the greatest leadership comes not from speeches or numbers, but from noticing the silent battles of ordinary people. A skipped lunch, a folded budget note, a tired but patient smile, these are the signs of real strength. And when a leader opens his eyes to see them, entire lives can be transformed.